So you're writing an equation for a quadratic situation, and you're given, this one has words, but you're basically given points, right? And so on your quiz, you may either have to do it this way where it's part of the scenario, or just given points. Like, here's the max, and here's another point on the parabola. But it's the same, right? Hopefully you could kind of read between the lines and see it as the same. So, lands on the ground, when it just says lands, that's a point, right? That's 4.5, comma 0. What is that called? That kind of point, what is it called? It's a intercept, yeah. So you could call that Q, that's an intercept. And then we have one where it starts, launched from the ground. So that's at 0, 0. And that, you could call that P. Okay? And then we have, it says it reached its peak at a height of 81. Okay? So what is the peak another word for? Yeah. Okay? So we know this coordinate is 81. So that's K. How do you get the X or the H coordinate there? Yeah, so think about this thing is going to go 4.5 seconds in the air, and the vertex is going to be right in the middle, which is 2.25 seconds. Okay? So your vertex is also known. Basically what this means is that you have two options for writing the equation, which are what? Okay. You guys have some work to do this weekend, I think.
Wow.
We can.
What are you asking?
I said, what are your two options for writing the equation with this given information? Yeah.
X-intercept and vertex form.
Yeah, good, guys. You can either set this up with vertex form or intercept form, because we know the intercepts and a point, which happens to be the vertex. So we know the vertex and 2 points, or the intercepts and another point. Okay, so I've already done the work here. I'm just going to show you it to save some time. If we do, but I do need you to look up here and pay attention. If we do vertex form, which at this point is probably the direction you should have gone, because we haven't done an example of this yet. We're going to do that here in a few minutes. So write vertex form. I put T in here instead of X, but it doesn't actually matter. It just makes more sense in context. Okay? Plug in your vertex, and then plug in one of the two other points. So we know the vertex, and I chose to plug in 4.5. And sometimes when you plug in the 0, 0 point, it doesn't really help. So if you have another point, use that. Okay? 4.5 was time, and then the height was 81, or excuse me, was 0 for the 4.5 seconds. So once you plug in those numbers, all that you have left to solve for is A. 4.5 minus 2.25 squared is 5.06. Subtract your 81 and divide, and you get negative 60. And there's your equation for that pumpkin flight. How many of you got there? There's no solving. We're just writing an equation.
I didn't solve A.
Solve for A.
Yeah, I just wrote the equation. Yeah, I just wrote the equation.
So you do have to solve for A to have the complete picture. But did you get these points?
Yeah. Yes.
Did you get that?
Yeah.
Okay. In terms of grading, this would probably be like maybe a 3-point problem, and this would probably represent half of the points, just A, because there's some solving to do. But then you would have gotten half of the points, which, as long as you don't do that, everything would be okay, I guess. Guys, look at this example. This is what we're going to talk about for about 15 minutes today, and then you can review. Intercept form, you can do the exact same thing. So I plugged in into intercept form, P and Q, plug in 0 and 4.5. Those are our 2 times it's on the ground, with A out front. And just like we did here, where I plugged in the point, I still need to do that here. So I'm plugging in 2.25 and 81. Okay? I have to plug in 2.25 in two places because there's two places where x goes or where t goes. But you notice we get the same exact thing, okay? 2.25 times negative 2.25 is negative 5.06. Just divide to get 16, well, negative 16. Okay? Why did I write this as just t? It came from here. You see how t minus 0, the 0 doesn't really matter. If you wrote t minus 0 here, that would be fine. And maybe you should, because it helps you see where stuff comes from. Anyway, solve for a. If you're asked to write an equation and you don't have it, you got to solve for it. Any questions on those? Okay. Before we go do an example of that, we're going to put it in your note packet, so you'll need that anyway. But grab your notes that we wrote on the drone problem. That was honestly, it was a little bit of a disaster on that day, which kind of frustrated me. And it was mostly my fault, so sorry about that. Basically what I want to mention, everything on here is fine, but we ran into trouble factoring, which was kind of annoying. Again, it was me, not you. It factored. If we had multiplied everything by 10, it was the same. It all factored just fine. I didn't show the star, but to 5, like here's our two factors. T minus 10, t minus 5 became 5 in 10 seconds, okay? Over here, we solved for when it reached the 5 meters, we solved on the calculator. But it actually didn't have to be done that way. I just wanted to take maybe 2 minutes to show you. So we're plugging into this given equation, we're plugging 5 for the height. Because we're saying when will it come back to 5, right? Basically that line there again. So here's what would have been faster. The calculator way was fine. It was super slow. Okay. So I want to solve this for t, right? When will it hit that 5 meters again? What can I do with these 5s? What will happen to them when I combine them? They just cancel, right? So they're gone. And we're here. What I said on Friday was you probably can't factor this, and you probably could, I guess, with the star. It would look pretty weird, but the better way to do this is by just GCF factoring. So what is the GCF with this? And I'll give you a hint, it's not a number. It's t, right? Okay, and this is important to review because sometimes this is the best way to do this. Okay, do you see how it's basically the same as this? We have 1, 2, 1, 2. We have 2 factors for both. And so remember how we set them equal to 0? So t equals 0, 0.1, t minus 1.5 equals 0. It's the same as what we did here. T minus 10 equals 0. Okay, same thing. It just looks slightly different because that t doesn't have a friend in parentheses. Okay, if you solve this, if you add 1.5 and divide by 0.1, you're going to get 15. So you didn't have to use a calculator. The thing left a 5 meter platform at 0 seconds, flew down and came back up to that height at 15 seconds. So just wanted to show you that you could have factored that using GCF. Okay, did that clear up anything? We got a little bit lost in the calculator on Wednesday, so you didn't actually need to use it on this part. Questions? All right, grab another box and let's show you or give you a written example of how to solve for A and write an equation in intercept form. So we'll just pull this one off. Okay. First thing I'm going to tell you is to look carefully at your points. So looking at this first one, what do you notice? Yeah. It's not going to say this, okay? It does in the problem, but if this wasn't given, you need to be able to recognize that those are x-intercepts. How?
Y equals 0.
Y equals 0, yeah. Okay? So let's just go use those points. That way we can make sure they work. It will say something that gives you the clue that you should use intercept form. Something like this. I can write it. So it will say in intercept form, that should cue you to be looking for intercepts. So for the parabola through negative 3, 0, negative 2, 0, negative 1, 0. Quick double check to make sure I have those. Yeah. Okay. Hold on. Negative 320. Fix the 0 on that one to 20. There we go. So first, write down the form. In this case, intercept form. So that's... Is it wrong to say y here instead of f of x? So if you prefer, and you write it on your quiz, if you write y equals, that's fine. Now we're going to fill in p, q, x, and f of x, or y, whichever one you choose to call it. I do want to put caution. Careful with the sign of P and Q. So let's go fill it out. What is f of x in all of this stuff? It's what? It's 20. Good. We're going to solve for a, so leave a alone. What is x? Negative 3 minus, what is p? Negative 2. X is negative 3 minus, what is q? Negative 1. I would, if you feel like you're potentially going to mess the sign up, I would write it out like this first. So make sure you put a minus in between and then just put the sign of P and Q. And then worry about converting it back to like these will become pluses, but start with the minus. That would be my suggestion. I want you to put some kind of a reminder. So x-intercepts have y equal to 0. So that you're looking for that if it doesn't tell you specifically. Any questions so far? Okay. And then solve for A. I would rewrite, probably, just to be careful with this, I would rewrite this as plus on both of them, in this case. So negative 3 plus 2, negative 3 plus 1. And then just take your time, that way you don't mess up. Negative 3 plus 2 is negative 1, negative 3 plus 1 is negative 2. What is negative 1 times negative 2? It's 2, so this will become 2a. So what is a? Good? Okay, and then the really important last step, which is to rewrite the equation with A, P, and Q only plugged in. Don't put in X's and Y's, that's a specific point. So this now looks like f of x equals 10 x plus 2 x plus 1.